When you hear the word cybersecurity, your mind probably jumps straight to hackers and hoodies and glowing green firewalls. But that's really just scratching the surface. Today, we're going to peel back those layers and build a clear mental map of how this whole world of digital defense actually works. You'll see how everything from human psychology to global law all fits together. So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to journey through 5 key areas. We'll start with the human factor. That's us. Then we'll zoom out to how big organizations manage risk, and then the tangled web of digital law. From there, we'll actually step into the shoes of an attacker before finally looking at what happens when all those defenses, well, they fail. All right, let's dive right in. And we're not starting with code or technology. We're starting with people. Because it turns out, if you really want to get a handle on cybersecurity, you have to understand people first. Now, we've all heard it a million times, right? That humans are the weakest link in the security chain. Well, this idea here flips that old saying completely on its head. It suggests the problem isn't really the user. The problem is the system. When security is so frustrating and complicated that it's impossible to use correctly, then it's just not going to work, period. So, okay, if we stop pointing fingers at the user, then what is the real issue here? It's a great question because it forces us to look past the easy answer and really dig into the design of the security systems we create and the expectations we put on people. And here's the heart of it. We are all wired to get things done as efficiently as possible. So when some security rule gets in the way of us doing our actual job, what do? We find a workaround. That little sticky note with a password on the monitor? That's not a person being lazy. That's a symptom of a security system that's failed to be practical. Okay, so from the individual, let's scale up. Let's look at the whole organization. How does a company decide what's worth protecting and how much money to throw at it? Well, it's not just guesswork. It's actually a very deliberate, structured process. They do this using something called a formal risk assessment. And this isn't just about dreaming up wild hacker scenarios. It's a methodical way to figure out what your most important assets are, what bad things could happen to them, and what the fallout would be. It's all about making smart decisions based on evidence. And that whole process really just boils down to 3 core steps. First step, identification. You just ask, what could possibly go wrong here? Then, assessment. Okay, where are we exposed? Where are the weak spots? And finally, estimation. All right, what are the odds of this happening and how bad would it be if it did? See? It's how you turn that vague feeling of danger into a concrete action plan. All of this leads to a strategy you've probably experienced, often called defense in depth. A great way to visualize it is the Swiss cheese model. Just imagine every security control, your password rules, your antivirus, that training you have to do every year, each one is a slice of cheese. And every slice has holes, right? Weaknesses. No single defense is ever perfect. But the idea is, if you stack up enough slices, it becomes really, really hard for an attacker to find a path that goes straight through all the holes. All right, now we zoom out even further, from the corporate world to the global stage. See, cybercrime doesn't care about borders on a map, and that creates a huge headache for legal systems that were built for a physical world. Now, here's something really important to get. A single cyber incident, like a major data breach, can kick off 2 totally different legal fights at the same time. On one hand, you have criminal law, where the government tries to prosecute the attackers for breaking the law. But then you also have civil law, where the victims can sue the company for not protecting their data. It's one event, but it can lead to 2 very different court battles. And this is exactly why we have these massive regulations like GDPR in Europe. They lay down the law for how companies have to handle our data. That breach notification rule, that's the reason you get that email saying, we've had an incident. And data protection by design is huge. It forces companies to think about security from the very beginning, not just bolt it on as an afterthought. Okay, so we've looked at you, the user, we've looked at the organization, we've looked at the law. Now it's time to switch hats. Let's stop thinking like a defender and start seeing the world through the eyes of an attacker. You can't really defend a castle if you can't imagine all the ways someone might try to storm it, right? It's the same with software. Security pros use frameworks like STRIDE to think like the bad guys. It's a simple acronym that helps them brainstorm all the different categories of threats so they can build defenses before an attack ever happens. So, how do you actually spot an attack while it's happening? Well, there are 2 main schools of thought. The first is called misuse detection. Think of this like having a wanted poster. You're looking for the specific fingerprints of a known bad guy. The other approach is anomaly detection. This is more like noticing someone acting really weird in a crowd. You first learn what normal looks like on a network, and then you sound the alarm when something totally out of the ordinary happens. It's how you might catch a brand new attack nobody's ever seen before. So, you can have all the best defenses in the world. But let's be realistic, incidents are still going to happen. And that brings us to our final layer. It's not about prevention anymore. It's all about reaction. What happens in those critical hours and days after you've been breached? A professional response isn't just chaos and running around with your hair on fire. It follows a clear, predictable life cycle. And it actually starts way before an attack, with preparation. Then, when the crisis hits, the team moves to handle it, contain the damage, kick the intruder out. But arguably the most important part is the follow-up. That's where you figure out exactly what happened so you can learn from it and make sure it never ever happens the same way again. Okay, so after the immediate crisis is over, there's always one burning question that everyone wants answered. Who did this? And in cyberspace, that question is incredibly hard to answer. Attackers use what are called false flags to point the blame at someone else. They steal and copy each other's malware, they hide behind layers of anonymous servers. Figuring out who's really behind the keyboard is one of the toughest problems in this entire field. And really, that's what it all comes down to, this lingering final question. In a digital world of smoke and mirrors, where identities can be faked and evidence can be planted, can we ever be 100% sure who's behind an attack? It's a search for truth in a digital hall of mirrors, and it just might be the single biggest challenge in cybersecurity today.